Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we are diving into something absolutely wild. We're looking at narcolepsy, but specifically, we're asking the question, narcolepsy dreams, why are they so different? Most people just think of narcolepsy as being really sleepy all the time, right? But the underlying neuroscience reveals something so much more profound than that. We're going to explore the unique architecture of the narcoleptic brain and see exactly how it fundamentally alters the human experience of dreaming, literally creating a vivid, parallel reality.
To really understand this, just listen to this raw, first-hand account from a patient log. They said, "It's the only thing about narcolepsy I don't hate, because now I have a second, vivid, more real reality." Wow. I mean, narcolepsy is a tough, exhausting neurological disorder for sure, but we're going to explore the incredibly surreal, high-definition universe it leaves behind in the mind. It's a place where dreams are chiseled into memory with the exact same permanence as something you did while you were awake.
So, here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with a second vivid reality, then dive into the biology of SOREMs, check out anchors and breakthroughs, explore the high-fidelity simulator, and finally, look at embracing the dream state.
All right, let's jump right into part one, a second vivid reality. You know how people used to think dreams were just random noise? Like your brain was just firing off junk data? Well, modern neuroscience has completely moved away from that. According to research by neuropsychoanalyst Mark Solms, dreaming is actually driven by the brain's seeking system, specifically the mesolimbic dopaminergic network. Think of this as your biological motivational command center. Now, at the exact same time the seeking system is firing up, we experience something called hypofrontality. That's really just a fancy scientific way of saying the logical, reality-testing part of our brain, the prefrontal cortex, is completely deactivated. Meanwhile, the limbic system, which is our emotional center, goes into overdrive. This creates a fascinating state of what we call hot cognition. It's basically maximum emotion paired with zero logic. Your brain is actually hunting for resolution or pleasure in a virtual environment, and it has absolutely no logical sensor to tone it down.
Moving right along to Section 2, the biology of SOREMs.
So why exactly are narcoleptic dreams so different? It honestly comes down to a biological glitch. It's all about SOREMs, which stands for sleep onset REM periods. In someone with narcolepsy, the brain completely bypasses the usual buffer stages of light and deep sleep and just plunges instantly into rapid eye movement or REM sleep. And because this drop is so fast, the brain literally doesn't have time to fully shut the gate between the waking mind and the dreaming mind. Crucially, because it bypasses the normal chemical erasing process that usually happens when we sleep, these high-definition narcoleptic dreams bypass the trash bin and get chiseled directly into long-term memory. It feels exactly like a waking memory.
Let's picture this. Normally, your brain has these nice, slow buffer stages, and a part of your brain called the thalamus acts like a heavy deadbolt, locking out the outside world. When you wake up, a chemical wash clears the dream away. But in the narcoleptic brain, there's a physical lack of a brain chemical called hypocretin, also known as orexin. Without it, that thalamus isn't a deadbolt anymore. It is essentially a swinging door. You get that instant REM onset, and those dreams are imprinted right into long-term storage. The veil between being awake and being asleep is incredibly, unbelievably thin.
And because of that swinging door, we see some really severe physical manifestations in waking life. This thin veil causes excessive daytime sleepiness and sudden sleep attacks, where a person might just fall asleep without any warning at all. It also causes sleep paralysis and something called cataplexy, which is sudden muscle weakness or even total collapse, usually triggered by a strong emotion like laughter or surprise. The big takeaway here is that this is a tangible neurological disorder. It's a physical limitation of the brain's sleep-wake boundaries. It's absolutely not a psychological choice or a character flaw.
Okay, part 3, anchors and breakthroughs.
Because the transition into REM sleep is so incredibly fluid, narcoleptic patients often experience this wild phenomenon called proprioceptive mirroring. Imagine this. Your brain takes the actual real-world physical location and position of your body and uses it as the literal setting for your dream. Your brain's awareness of your physical bed perfectly overlaps with the dream environment. It creates this intense, hybrid state of consciousness where reality and the dream world literally map onto each other.
And what's truly mind-bending is that this hybrid state can actually be triggered by everyday physical objects. There's this one fascinating patient log where they detailed falling asleep with a mental cough drop in their mouth. Now, because their thalamus is leaky, like we talked about, the strong, constant stimulus of the cold menthol and sugar couldn't be ignored by the brain. It literally wedged that swinging door open. The cough drop acted as a sensory anchor, tethering the waking sensory brain to the sleeping brain. The patient could actually feel the cold menthol in their mouth while they were actively walking around exploring a dream. It acted as a built-in reality check that instantly triggered lucid dreaming. That is just incredible.
But keeping that sensory anchor online has a very real physical consequence. It keeps the motor cortex active. Normally, sleep paralysis steps in and stops you from moving while you dream. But in a motor breakthrough, that safety system fails. Patient logs show exactly how this happens in 4 steps. First, the overlap. You're dreaming that you're in your actual physical bed. Second, the trigger. There's an urgent, sudden need to move in the dream, like reaching out for a falling tube of chapstick or suddenly sprinting to catch a bus. Third, the breakthrough. Because the brain is still tethered to reality, that command to reach or leap is sent to the actual physical muscles in the real world. And finally, the wake-up. The patient literally leaps out of bed, and that massive physical movement instantly shatters the dream state.
Which brings us to Section 4, the high-fidelity simulator.
So what is all this for? Dreams aren't just passive movies. They actually serve critical evolutionary purposes. For instance, there's threat simulation theory, where the brain rehearses survival skills. There's social simulation theory, where we practice complex relationships, and emotional processing, which digests the raw data and trauma of our daily lives and turns them into symbols. But specifically in narcolepsy, we see the simulator theory at its absolute peak. Because these dreams feel physically real, to the point of causing actual movement, like we just talked about, the brain is essentially using them as a high-fidelity training ground to test reflexes and practice reactions to stress. Did you know your brain actually uses a highly specific schedule to build this simulator? It's called chronobiology. First, you have the day residue effect, where the brain pulls from events just 1 to 2 days prior to create the immediate scenery or the background of the dream. But then you have the dream lag effect. This pulls from 5 to 7 days prior. And this is the heavy stuff. This is when the brain processes personally significant emotional events, reflecting the deeper transfer of memory from short-term right into long-term storage in the neocortex. It's like a highly organized filing system.
Now, when you analyze these simulations, some really profound patterns emerge. One reoccurring motif in narcoleptic dream logs is the frustration loop. This is a dream involving thwarted rewards. It might be a promised box of chocolates that gets taken away at the last second, or being driven around aimlessly and continually missing a really important scheduled operation. These aren't just random annoyances. They are a direct subconscious reflection of the physical frustrations of living with narcolepsy. It's the mind processing that terrible feeling of stifled autonomy, where your body's sleep attacks or intense brain fog are constantly diverting your intent and agency in waking life.
Finally, let's look at Section 5, embracing the dream state.
The source material shows some incredibly empowering survival strategies the patients develop to actually navigate the simulator, because, let's be honest, narcoleptic dreams can be terrifying. To counter this, patients cultivate detached curiosity, shifting from being a scared victim of the dream to an observant student. Believe it or not, that mindset actually stabilizes the dream's architecture. To break out of severe sleep paralysis, patients use verbal anchoring, speaking out loud in the dream. Phrases like, "How do I wake up?" to force their motor cortex to engage. Before sleep, they use pre-sleep seating, saturating their mind with a specific feeling, like the curiosity of breathing underwater, to set a positive environment. And finally, they use the wake-back-to-bed method, deliberately leaning into morning naps where REM pressure is at its peak to actively encourage these high-fidelity imprinted experiences. They turn a symptom into a tool.
We've seen how the lack of just one single brain chemical can open a swinging door into a remarkably vivid second reality, and it perfectly answers why narcoleptic dreams are so incredibly different from the norm. This brings us to a final, pretty profound thought to leave you with today. If dreams are not just random noise, but a high-fidelity biological simulator digesting the deep data of your daily life, what do the rhythms and symbols of your own internal house reveal about your waking reality? I highly encourage you to think about that the very next time you close your eyes. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep exploring.